I used to believe that love was the strongest force in the universe. That was before I discovered the raw power of betrayal and what it could drive a person to achieve. My name is Ava, and 6 months ago I was living what I thought was my best life. I had a successful career in marketing, a husband who looked at me like I hung the moon, and a sister who'd been my closest friend since we shared dolls and scraped knees. Looking back now, I realise how perfectly crafted that illusion was. Earth to Eva! Lorelei waved her hand in front of my face, bringing me back to our weekly sister lunch at Café Moderne. You're spacing out again. Sorry, I laughed, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Just thinking about the Anderson campaign. All you do is work, she teased, reaching across the table to steal one of my sweet potato fries. Peter mentioned you've been pulling late nights again. The mention of my husband made me smile. He's one to talk. He's been just as busy with that new client of his. Lorelei's expression flickered for a moment, something I wouldn't remember until much later. Speaking of Peter, are you guys still trying? The question made my chest tight. Peter and I had been trying for a baby for the past year with no luck. Yeah, I sighed. Nothing yet. It'll happen when it's meant to, she said, squeezing my hand. You two are going to be amazing parents. That evening, Peter was already home when I arrived, cooking dinner in our kitchen. The sight of him in his dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, humming while stirring pasta, made my heart flutter even after 5 years of marriage. Hey, beautiful, he smiled, pulling me in for a kiss. How was lunch with Lorelei? Good. She says you've been tattling on my work hours, he chuckled, turning back to the stove. Someone has to keep you in check. We ate dinner on our balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. Everything felt perfect, normal, safe. The next morning I found the lump. It was small, barely noticeable, but it changed everything. The doctor's office was cold and Peter's hand was warm in mine as we waited for the results. Lorelei sat on my other side, having rushed over the moment I called her. The biopsy results are conclusive, Dr. Matthews said, her face carefully composed. It's stage 2 breast cancer. The words hit like a physical blow. Peter's hand tightened around mine, and Lorelei made a small, choked sound. What are our options? My voice sounded strange, distant. We need to start chemotherapy as soon as possible, Dr. Matthews explained, pulling out several pamphlets. Given your age and overall health, I'm optimistic about your prognosis, but we need to be aggressive in treatment. The drive home was silent. Peter kept glancing at me, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Lorelei followed us in her car, insisting on staying over. I'm not going anywhere, she declared, setting up camp on our couch. We're going to fight this together. That night, after Lorelei had fallen asleep in the guest room and Peter thought I was sleeping, I heard him crying in our bathroom. The sound broke something in me, but it also sparked a determination I didn't know I possessed. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of appointments, treatment plans, and well-meaning visitors. I threw myself into research, learning everything I could about my diagnosis. Peter took time off work to accompany me to appointments, and Lorelei was there almost every day, bringing healthy meals and positive energy. You're the strongest person I know, she told me one evening, helping me organize my medications. You're going to beat this. Peter nodded from his spot on the couch, looking up from his laptop. Our warrior, he said softly. I believed them then, believed in their love, their support, their unwavering presence in my corner. I had no idea that while I was preparing for the fight of my life, they were about to stick a knife in my back. The irony is, cancer wasn't the worst thing that would happen to me that year. Cancer at least was honest about its intentions. It didn't pretend to love me while plotting my destruction. It didn't smile in my face while twisting a knife in my heart. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back then, I was still blissfully unaware of what was coming. I was focused on surviving, on being strong for my husband and sister, on proving that love could conquer anything. I was wrong about love, but I was about to learn just how right I was about survival. The first round of chemo hit me like a freight train. I spent hours hunched over the toilet, my body rebelling against the very thing meant to save me. Peter held my hair back, his touch gentle but somehow different, distracted maybe. I was too sick to really notice. "I brought ginger tea and crackers," Lorelei announced, letting herself in with the spare key. She'd been doing that more often lately, showing up at odd hours. "How are you feeling, sweetie?" "Like death warmed over," I managed, accepting the tea with shaking hands. "Peter, you look exhausted," she said, touching his shoulder. "Why don't you go get some rest? I'll stay with her." He hesitated, then nodded. "Thanks, Lorelei. I do have some work emails to catch up on." As he left, I caught a look between them that made something twist in my stomach. But the nausea hit again, and I dismissed it as paranoia from the medications. My best friend Mallory visited later that day, bringing trashy magazines and a sympathetic ear. "Your sister's been around a lot," she commented, painting my toenails a bright pink that felt defiantly alive. "She's been amazing," I said, though something in my voice must have wavered. Mallory looked up sharply. "But, I don't know, something feels off. Peter's been distant, and Lorelei—" I shook my head. "I'm probably just being paranoid. The drugs mess with your head. Trust your gut, Eva. It's usually right." The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Chemo, nausea, brief recoveries where I felt almost human, then back to chemo again. My hair started falling out in clumps and Lorelei suggested we make it a party. She and Mallory came over with wine, ginger ale for me, and took turns with the clippers. "You look badass," Mallory declared when it was done. Peter walked in, late from work again. "Wow," he said, but his eyes slid past me to where Lorelei was cleaning up the hair. "You look great." That night, I woke to an empty bed. Voices drifted up from the kitchen, whispered but intense. "We can't keep doing this," Peter's voice strained. "I know, but—" Lorelei's response was too quiet to hear. I should have gone down, should have demanded answers. But exhaustion pulled me back under before I could gather the strength. The next day, Knox, Peter's friend from college, stopped by. His face was tight with something more than sympathy for my condition. "How are you holding up?" he asked, watching me carefully. "I'm okay. The treatments are working, according to the latest scans." He nodded, distracted. "And Peter? How's he been?" "Busy with work." "Why?" Knox shifted uncomfortably. "No reason. Just, if you need anything, call me. Okay?" I started paying more attention after that. The way Peter's phone would ding late at night, how he'd take calls in another room, how Lorelei would show up looking slightly dishevelled, her lipstick just a bit smudged. "I thought we could try that new smoothie place," Lorelei suggested one afternoon, the one by Peter's office. "He's in meetings all day," I said, watching her face. "Oh, right. Of course." She recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. During my next treatment, while the poison dripped into my veins, I scrolled through old photos on my phone. There was one from last Christmas, Peter and Lorelei standing by the tree. Nothing suspicious except his hand on her waist, her body angled toward him in a way that seemed too intimate now that I was really looking. "Your blood pressure's a bit high," the nurse noted, checking my vitals. "Just stressed," I said, closing the photos. That evening, I tried to initiate intimacy with Peter for the first time since starting treatment. He pulled away, making excuses about not wanting to hurt me. "I'm not made of glass," I said. "I know, but maybe we should wait until you're stronger." I lay awake that night, listening to him breathe, wondering when my husband had become a stranger, wondering if my sister had always been a snake in waiting, or if this was new territory for her, too. The next morning, Mallory called. "Want to grab coffee? You sound like you need to talk." "I can't," I said, watching Peter rush out the door, claiming another early meeting. "Lorelei's coming over to help me organize my medications." "Again? Eva?" "I know." I cut her off. "I know." But knowing and proving were different things, and I needed proof before I could face what my heart was already screaming to be true. The cancer wasn't killing me nearly as fast as their betrayal. The proof came on a Tuesday. I remember because it was supposed to be my chemo day, but my blood counts were too low, so they rescheduled. I hadn't told anyone about the cancellation. I just wanted one day of peace, one day where no one treated me like I was dying. I was curled up on our living room couch when I heard the front door open. Peter's voice drifted in, followed by Lorelei's laugh, that specific laugh she used when flirting, the one I'd heard her use countless times at bars in our 20s. I didn't move. Couldn't move. They thought I was at the hospital. We shouldn't, Lorelei's voice breathy and familiar. Not here. She'll be at treatment for hours, Peter replied. Come here. The sound of kissing made my stomach turn. I pressed my hand against my mouth, fighting the urge to vomit, and this time it wasn't from the chemo. What if she suspects something? Lorelei asked. Eva's too focused on her treatment to notice anything, Peter said. Besides, you're her sister. She trusts you completely. The laugh Lorelei let out then was different, darker, almost cruel. Poor, sweet Ava. Always seeing the best in everyone. Do you feel guilty? Peter's voice was muffled, like he was speaking into her neck. Sometimes. But then I remember how I've always had to be the responsible one, the perfect one. She got everything so easily. The career, the husband, the perfect life. Maybe it's my turn. While she's fighting cancer. Peter had the audacity to sound conflicted. She's going to beat it. You know Ava. She's stronger than anyone gives her credit for. And when she does, well, we'll figure it out then. They moved toward the bedroom, our bedroom, and I finally forced myself to move. Silent as a ghost, I slipped out the front door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get my key in the car ignition. I drove to Mallory's apartment on autopilot, tears blurring my vision. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. Tell me, she demanded, sitting me down on her couch. I told her everything. The whispered conversations, the strange looks, the final devastating proof. By the time I finished, Mallory was pacing, her face flushed with anger. I'm going to kill them both, she declared. How dare they, while you're fighting for your life? I can't confront them, I said, the words surprising even me. What? Ava, you have to. I shook my head, something cold and hard crystallizing in my chest. No, not yet. Not like this. Weak, sick, dependent on them. But they think I'm too focused on surviving to notice anything else? My laugh sounded foreign to my own ears. Fine. Let them think that. Let them think they've won. Mallory sat down beside me, taking my trembling hands in hers. What are you going to do? I'm going to survive. Not just the cancer, I'm going to survive them. And then... I squeezed her hands. Then, I'm going to make them regret ever underestimating me. Ava, Mallory's voice was worried, don't let them turn you bitter. Bitter. I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in months. This isn't bitterness, Mal. This is clarity. For the first time since my diagnosis, I can see everything perfectly clearly. My phone buzzed. A text from Lorelei asking how treatment went. Another from Peter saying he loved me and hoped I was feeling okay. Look at them. I showed Mallory the messages, playing their parts perfectly. The devoted sister, the loving husband. What do you want me to do? Mallory asked. Act normal. Don't let them know I know. I need time. Time for what? I thought about the business plan I'd been developing before my diagnosis, the one Peter had dismissed as too risky. Time to build something of my own, something they can't touch or taint or take away from me. You're scaring me a little, Mallory admitted. Good, I said, typing quick replies to both messages. Because I'm about to scare them too. They just don't know it yet. I went home that evening to find them both in my kitchen, preparing dinner like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't destroyed everything I believed in just hours before. How was treatment? Lorelei asked, hugging me. I hugged her back, remembering her words. Poor sweet Eva. It was fine, I smiled. I'm feeling stronger every day. Peter kissed my forehead and I let him, thinking of all the ways I was going to make them pay. They wanted to play happy family? Fine. I'd play along, right up until the moment I didn't. Let them think they were winning. Let them think I was blind. They were about to learn just how strong the sweet sister could be. The day I met Anton was the day my revenge truly began to take shape. I was sitting in a coffee shop, my head wrapped in a silk scarf, reviewing my old business plan while Peter thought I was at a support group. "That's an interesting market analysis," a voice said over my shoulder. I turned to find a tall man in his late 30s studying my papers. "I'm sorry?" "Your projections for the sustainable fashion market," he gestured to my notes. "They're solid, but you're playing it too safe." "And you are?" "Anton Jordan. I run a business incubator downtown." He sat down uninvited, but something about his direct manner intrigued me. "Mind if I take a look?" I pushed the papers toward him, watching as he scanned them with sharp eyes. "This is good," he said finally. "Really good. Why haven't you launched it?" "Cancer got in the way," I said bluntly, watching for the usual flinch of pity. It didn't come. "And now?" "Now?" I thought of Peter and Lorelei probably together at that very moment. "Now I have nothing but time and motivation." Anton's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Come to my office tomorrow. Bring these plans and any other ideas you've been sitting on." That night at dinner, Peter asked about the support group. "It was enlightening," I said, watching him eat the meal Lorelei had dropped off earlier. Really opened my eyes to things I hadn't seen before. The next day, I sat across from Anton in his sleek office, laying out my vision for an eco-friendly fashion brand that would revolutionize how people thought about sustainable clothing. "The market's saturated," he said bluntly. "The market's full of greenwashing and half measures," I countered. "I want to build something authentic, something that can't be faked." His smile was sharp. "Like you're being right now?" I stiffened. "Excuse me?" "You're angry. I can see it in every line of your business plan. This isn't just about clothes. It's about proving something." "Is that a problem?" "On the contrary," he leaned forward. "Anger can be an excellent motivator, as long as you channel it properly. The question is, are you willing to do the work?" "I'm fighting cancer," I said. "Everything else is just details." He nodded. "First step, we need to secure funding without your husband's knowledge. I assume that's important." My surprise must have shown on my face. "The ring tan on your finger, but no ring. The way you keep checking your phone. Something's wrong at home and you're planning an escape route." "Not an escape," I corrected. "A launch pad." Over the next few weeks, I built 2 lives. In one, I was the dutiful wife and sister, accepting their care with grateful smiles while my hair slowly grew back and my strength returned. In the other, I was a budding entrepreneur, working with Anton to build something from scratch. "Your latest scan looks good," Dr. Matthews said during a checkup. "The tumour's shrinking significantly." "Just like my marriage," I muttered. "What was that?" "Nothing. When can we reduce the treatments?" That evening, Mallory helped me set up a separate bank account under my maiden name. "Peter called me today," she said casually. "Asked if you seemed different lately." "What did you tell him?" "That chemo changes people. He seemed relieved to have an explanation." I laughed bitterly. He's always been good at believing what's convenient. The next day, Anton introduced me to potential investors. I wore a wig and used my maiden name, presenting my vision with a passion that surprised even me. "They're impressed," Anton said afterward, "but they're going to want to see you fully committed." "I am committed. Are you? Because sooner or later you'll have to stop playing happy families and show your hand." I thought of Lorelei's latest text. "Just checking in, sis. Love you so much." "The treatments are almost done," I said. "Once I'm declared cancer-free, the gloves come off." And then I showed him the lease I'd found for a small office space. Then I build something so successful they'll have to watch me thrive without them. That night, Peter worked late again. I used the time to finalize the paperwork for my new company, registering it under my maiden name. "You're different lately," Peter said when he finally came home. "More distant." "Am I?" I looked up from my laptop. Or are you just finally paying attention? He frowned, but before he could respond, his phone buzzed. Lorelei's name flashed on the screen. You should get that, I said sweetly. It might be important. He stepped out to take the call, and I returned to my work, smiling as I typed out the company's mission statement. Building beauty from betrayal, one piece at a time. 3 months into building my secret empire, the first cracks in their facade began to show. I was at my office space, officially a yoga studio as far as Peter knew, when Mallory burst in. They had a fight, she announced, dropping into the chair across from my desk. A big one, right in the middle of the coffee shop near Peter's office. Tell me everything. Lorelei was crying about him being distant. He kept saying something about guilt and timing. Half the office crowd heard them before they realized they were making a scene. I smiled, continuing to sort through fabric samples. Karma's finally showing up to the party. That's not all. Mallory leaned forward. Knox was there. He saw the whole thing. Knox, who'd been watching them with increasing disgust, had become an unexpected ally. He called me later that evening. Your sister's losing it, he said without preamble. She showed up at Peter's office again today after the coffee shop incident. His secretary had to threaten to call security. How's Peter handling it? Like a man realizing he bet on the wrong horse. You should have seen his face when people started whispering. I hung up just as Peter walked in, looking haggard. Rough day? I asked innocently. Just work stress, he mumbled, heading straight for the liquor cabinet. The next day I had my final chemo session. Lorelei was notably absent, sending a text about a migraine. Peter sat beside me, checking his phone every few minutes. Expecting an important call? I asked. What? No, just work stuff. Must be difficult, I said, watching the last drops of chemo enter my veins, juggling everything. He looked at me sharply, but I kept my face neutral. Later that week, during a meeting with Anton and our investors, my phone lit up with a series of texts from Lorelei. We need to talk. I've made a horrible mistake. Please call me Eva. I silenced the phone, focusing instead on our production timeline. The first collection is ready for the soft launch, Anton said. Are you sure you want to debut at the industry showcase? Peter's firm will be there. Counting on it, I smiled. That evening, Lorelei showed up at our door unannounced. Her mascara was smeared and she reeked of wine. Is Peter here? She asked, pushing past me. Working late, I said, watching her pace our living room. Of course he is, she laughed bitterly. He's always working late now. Problems in paradise? She froze, turning to look at me. What? Nothing, I shrugged. You just seem stressed lately. Ever, she started, then stopped. You look good. Healthy. Cancer-free as of last week's scan, I said. Amazing what you can survive, isn't it? She flinched. I should go. You should, I agreed. The next day, Knox sent me a video someone had taken at a bar near Peter's office. In it, Lorelei was trying to talk to Peter while he repeatedly pushed her away, hissing "not here," loud enough for nearby patrons to hear. I forwarded it to Anton with the message, "The timing's perfect." You're playing with fire, he replied. No, I typed back. I'm playing with snakes. That weekend, Peter tried to initiate sex for the first time in months. I turned away. Is everything okay? He asked. You've been different. Have I? Or have you? What's that supposed to mean? I sat up, looking at him in the dim light. You tell me, Peter. Any confessions you'd like to make? His face went pale. Eva. No. I stood up, grabbing my robe. That's fine. I'm sure it'll all come out eventually. Things like this always do. The next morning, I found him sleeping on the couch. His phone was on the coffee table, lighting up with a message from Lorelei. We need to tell her. I can't take this anymore. I left the phone where he could see it had been moved and went to my yoga class. Anton was waiting at the office with the final samples for our showcase collection. Each piece was perfect, sustainable, elegant, and tagged with a brand name that would soon be synonymous with rising from betrayal. The invitations go out today, he said. Last chance to back out. I picked up one of the garments, running my fingers over the fabric. You know what the best part is? They did this to themselves. All I had to do was wait and watch. And build an entire company in secret. Well, I smiled, a girl needs a hobby while her husband's sleeping with her sister. The showcase was in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, everything would change. I couldn't wait. The industry showcase was held at the Grand Plaza Hotel, all gleaming marble and crystal chandeliers. Peter adjusted his tie in the elevator mirror, oblivious to what was coming. Nervous? I asked. You usually don't attend these fashion events. The firm has interests in several brands showing tonight, he said. Besides, it's your first big outing since finishing treatment. I wouldn't miss it. If only he knew. The exhibition hall was already buzzing when we arrived. I spotted Lorelei immediately. She'd come as someone's plus one, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's rent. Her eyes widened when she saw us. Eva, Peter, I didn't know you'd be here. Didn't you? I smiled. Peter's firm has interests in several brands showing tonight. She paled slightly. Right, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, Anton's voice boomed through the speakers. Please take your seats. The showcase is about to begin. Peter led us to his firm's reserved table near the front. Lorelei hovered nearby, finally sitting at the adjacent table. Perfect viewing distance for what was about to unfold. The first few brands presented their collections to polite applause. Peter checked his phone repeatedly under the table, while Lorelei kept trying to catch his eye. And now, Anton announced, I'm proud to present our final collection of the evening, a brand that redefines not just sustainable fashion, but the very essence of resilience. The lights dimmed. On the massive screens behind the runway, my face appeared, not the weak cancer-stricken version they knew, but a powerful, determined woman looking straight into the camera. Sometimes, my voice filled the room, the things meant to destroy us become our foundation for something greater. Peter's head snapped up. Lorelei's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. The first model emerged wearing one of my designs. Each piece told a story of transformation, of beauty rising from betrayal. The brand name, Phoenix Rising, blazed above the runway in fierce red letters. This collection, Anton continued, was created by a woman who fought cancer while building an empire in secret. Please welcome our designer and CEO, Eva Wilson. I stood up, smoothing down my own creation, a dress that made me look like living flame. Peter's face had gone ashen. Ava, he whispered. What is this? This, I said clearly, is what I was doing during all those support group meetings. Walking to the stage, I felt weightless, powerful. The applause was thunderous, but I could see Peter and Lorelei frozen in their seats, the truth finally dawning on them. Phoenix Rising, I addressed the crowd, was born from the ashes of betrayal. While fighting cancer, I discovered that some people see your weakness as their opportunity. My eyes found theirs in the audience, but they forget. What doesn't kill you makes you unstoppable. The subsequent presentation was a blur of acclaim and handshakes. Buyers approached with contracts. Journalists requested interviews. Through it all, I could see Peter and Lorelei having a heated, whispered argument in the corner. Knox appeared at my elbow with a glass of champagne. That, he said, was the most elegant destruction I've ever witnessed. It's not destruction, I corrected. It's resurrection. Finally, Peter approached, his face a mask of desperation. Eva, we need to talk. About what? I asked loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. About how you slept with my sister while I was going through chemo, or about how you both thought I was too weak and distracted to notice. The surrounding conversations stopped. Heads turned. Please, he whispered. Not here. Why not here? I gestured to the room. You didn't seem concerned about location when you were fucking my sister in our bed while I was supposed to be at treatment. Lorelei tried to slip away, but Knox blocked her path. Going somewhere? Eva, she pleaded. We never meant to get caught, I finished. Clearly. But you see, While you two were busy betraying me, I was busy building this. And now everyone knows exactly who you are. Peter reached for my arm. Let me explain. Take your hand off my client, Anton's voice cut through the tension. Unless you want to add assault to tonight's entertainment. Security appeared, quietly but firmly escorting them out. Through the glass doors, I could see them arguing in the lobby, their perfect facades finally crumbling completely. Was it worth it? Mallory asked, appearing beside me. I watched as Lorelei stormed off in one direction, Peter in another, their secret exposed to all the people whose opinions they valued most. Ask me again in a year, I said, turning back to a group of eager investors. Right now, I have an empire to run. The night wasn't over, but their part in my story was. Finally, beautifully, over. The fallout was spectacular. Within days of the showcase, Peter's firm put him on indefinite leave. Turns out, sleeping with your cancer-stricken wife's sister while embezzling company time doesn't play well in corporate circles. He's been calling non-stop, Mallory said, helping me pack up the last of my things from his house. Should I block his number? Let him call. I want him to feel what it's like to be ignored. My phone buzzed, another text from Lorelei. Please, Eva, let me explain. Mum and Dad won't even speak to me. Good, I muttered, deleting the message. Knox arrived with coffee and news. Your sister's boyfriend dumped her. Apparently he saw the video of her meltdown at the showcase. It's gone viral, by the way. How viral? He showed me his phone. The clip of my speech, followed by their very public exposure, had millions of views. The comments were ruthless. Karma is a boss bitch in a Phoenix Rising dress. When she said what doesn't kill you makes you unstoppable, I felt that. Anyone else want to buy everything this queen makes? The orders were pouring in. Anton had to hire additional staff just to handle the demand. We've got 3 major department stores wanting exclusive contracts, he said during our morning meeting. And that fashion blogger you mentioned? She's outside right now waiting for an interview. Make her wait another hour, I smiled. I learned the hard way that some things are worth taking your time with. Later that day, I was reviewing designs in my new office when security called up. Ms. Wilson, your husband is here. Ex-husband, I corrected. And no, I don't want to see him. He's causing a scene in the lobby, I sighed. Send him up. Might as well get this over with. Peter looked terrible, unshaven, suit wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. Eva, please, you have to let me explain. Explain what? How you fell into my sister accidentally, multiple times? I was weak, confused. Your diagnosis, it scared me. So you decided to fuck my sister as a coping mechanism? I kept my voice ice cold. How therapeutic for you both. The firm is investigating me, he said. Clients are pulling out. My reputation is exactly what you deserve. I stood up. Was it worth it, Peter? Was she worth destroying everything we built? She meant nothing. It was a mistake. No, I cut him off. A mistake is buying the wrong coffee. What you two did was a choice. Multiple choices made over and over while I was fighting for my life. What can I do? He pleaded. How can I fix this? You can't. That's the point. Now get out of my office before I call security. As he slunk away, Mallory appeared with lunch. Was that Peter I saw crying in the elevator? Probably. Apparently karma's hitting him where it hurts. His reputation and his wallet. Speaking of karma, she handed me her phone. Look what Knox sent me. It was a photo of Lorelei leaving a bar with some guy. Below it, Knox had written, Peter just walked in. Should be interesting. An hour later, Knox called. You missed quite a show. Peter saw Lorelei with the new guy and lost it. Security had to break them up. She was screaming about how he ruined her life. He was yelling about how she destroyed his marriage. Pure poetry. Any injuries? Just their pride. And Peter's jaw, the new guy, has a mean right hook. That evening, I had dinner with my parents. Mum couldn't stop crying. We raised her better than this, she kept saying. How could she do this to her own sister? It's not your fault, I assured them. Some people just make terrible choices. We're so proud of you, Dad said, squeezing my hand. Not just the business, though that's incredible, but how you handled everything. You're stronger than both of them combined. Back at my new apartment, I found an envelope that had been slipped under my door. Inside was a letter from Lorelei. I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't deserve forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that losing you as my sister is the worst consequence of all. I'll regret it forever. I dropped the letter in the shredder without responding. My phone pinged with a notification. Another major magazine wanted to feature Phoenix Rising. The headline would read, "From Cancer to Empire, How One Woman's Betrayal Became Her Blueprint for Success." Perfect, I texted back to the editor. But add one thing. This isn't just about success. It's about justice. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't just living well. It's thriving so spectacularly that your enemies have to watch from the sidelines, powerless to stop your rise. And I was just getting started. The divorce papers arrived on the same day as my invitation to the Global Fashion Awards. I signed both with the same pen, smiling at the symmetry. "You're nominated for Breakthrough Designer of the Year," Anton said during our morning meeting. "The ceremony's next week in Milan." "Book 2 tickets," I told him. "Mallory's coming with me." "Make it 3, Knox called from the doorway. "You'll need someone to document Peter's face when he sees you accept that award." I raised an eyebrow. "He'll be there?" "His firm is sponsoring the event. Mandatory attendance for all partners." Knox grinned. "Well, former partners. They officially terminated him yesterday." The night of the awards, Milan's fashion elite gathered at the historic Teatro alla Scala. I wore my newest design, a dress that shifted from deep black to brilliant gold, like a phoenix mid-transformation. "Incoming," Mallory muttered. 3 o'clock. Peter stood with his firm's remaining partners, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. Beside him, a young woman clutched his arm, his date presumably. She looked nothing like Lorelei. "Ever," he nodded stiffly as we passed. "Peter," I smiled. "Love the company. Trading down seems to be your specialty." His date's face fell as she caught my meaning. The ceremony began and I watched Peter squirm through every category. Finally, they announced Breakthrough Designer for creating a brand that represents not just fashion, but resilience and triumph over adversity. The presenter said, "The award goes to Eva Wilson of Phoenix Rising." The standing ovation was deafening. As I took the stage, I caught sight of Peter's face, ashen, defeated, watching his ex-wife become everything he never thought she could be. "Thank you," I said into the microphone. Someone once told me that cancer would be the hardest battle of my life. They were wrong. The hardest battle was trusting myself enough to rise above betrayal. This award isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who's ever been underestimated, betrayed, or written off. Your pain isn't your ending. It's your beginning. At the after-party, Knox appeared with news. "You'll never guess who I just saw getting kicked out of a bar down the street. Lorelei. Drinking alone, trying to crash the party. Security recognized her from that viral video." I sipped my champagne. How the mighty have fallen. "Speaking of falling," Mallory nodded toward Peter, who was arguing with his date near the exit. She threw her drink in his face and stormed out. "Karma really is a patient artist," I mused. Later that night, back in my hotel suite, I found a message from my oncologist. "Final scans clear. Official remission status confirmed. Congratulations, Eva." I forwarded it to my parents, then opened my laptop to finish my latest design collection. The theme? Resurrection. A knock at my door revealed Anton with a bottle of vintage champagne. "To new beginnings? To karma," I corrected. "And to never underestimating the quiet ones." "You know," he said, pouring the champagne, "revenge success stories usually end with the victor feeling empty. You seem fulfilled?" I smiled. "That's because this was never just about revenge. It was about becoming who I was always meant to be, without them holding me back." My phone buzzed with a text from Knox. "Peter just got denied entry to the VIP lounge. Told everyone who would listen that he discovered you." No one believed him. "You know what the best part is?" I showed Anton the text. "I didn't have to destroy them. They destroyed themselves. I just built something beautiful out of the wreckage they left behind. Speaking of building, Anton pulled out a tablet. Tokyo Fashion Week wants us to headline. Book it, I said. And Anton, make sure Peter's firm gets an invitation. I want them to see exactly what they lost. The city lights sparkled outside my window, reflecting off my award like scattered stars. Somewhere in those streets, my sister was drowning her regrets in cheap wine. My ex-husband was probably calling another woman who wouldn't answer. And here I was, at the top of the world they never thought I'd reach. To Phoenix Rising. Anton raised his glass. No, I said softly, thinking of the long journey from that first devastating discovery to this moment of triumph. To rising above. Period. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just about watching your enemies fall, it's about soaring so high they become nothing but tiny, insignificant dots in the landscape of your success. And from up here, the view was absolutely perfect.